Anyway, I'll read Learning from the Vikings because it's probably the purest love poem I've written, and it can't be repeated. Learning from the Vikings. In tumultuous dreams of a Viking past and nightmares of a nuclear blast, I know in waking that dark Arctic days and nights they spent in chess and poetry, in honour of nature inhospitable, but feeder of their souls. And in the moment of light, after the sweating dark, in a moment that seems like Eden in all its purity, I turn to see your sleeping head, and in love's knowledge see clarified that everything again has reached out to survive this hour.
And again, that's quite a Hughesian sort of line at the end. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your correspondence with Ted Hughes.
Mm.
How did it start? How long did it last? And how important was it for you?
I got 4 letters and 1 postcard from Tertius. Uh, what happened when Bread and Crowds was published? Um, Douglas Dunn very kindly gave me a whole list of addresses, including R.S. Thomas, Hughes, Michael Hamburger, to send it to. And that's how the correspondence started. I said, dear Ted Hughes, please accept the enclosure of my compliments. And he wrote me this 2 sides of A4 back. And I was only 25 and very inexperienced and confused. And he was brilliant. And in that first letter, he said, the great thing is to have confidence in what cannot be proved. And he said, when critics talk to you of discipline, he said they're talking about algebra and basic arithmetic, or words to that effect. And he said, in comparison, you're working in the world of Planck and Einstein. Oh, God. Can imagine what that did to my ego. But he sent me, they were lovely letters. They were fabulous letters. And he had a reputation as being very generous to other poets, didn't he? And in a way, he was the guy that kept me going, you know, in those early isolating years, because they were isolating. Because I didn't have a niche. Wasn't part of a university. I didn't have a job most of the time, and I was just battling away. And these letters arrived, and I thought, God, I must be doing something right. But they were fascinating, absolutely fascinating. What an insight into the man's own mind. So that's why I talk about in that interview that I did with you, Ian, about it was his atmosphere of mind that interested me. Yeah. And also, sorry, I also saw him as an ally because in the early 70s in Hull, although Flynn and I were great friends and I knew Ian Gregson, um, I felt on the outside because they were all writing sort of Hamiltonian poems, very minimalist and all that sort of thing. And I just wanted to sort of fly off. And so I saw Hughes as an ally. Okay.
I can see that. I can see why you would. A couple of other poets, sort of from that generation, Geoffrey Hill
Mm.
and R.S. Thomas. I know he's a bit older, but roughly the same generation. Can you just say something about their influence?
Influence, yeah. Well, Geoffrey Hill's poem, The Dove, or The Turtle Dove, actually, isn't it? Influenced the poem I wrote called The Liberation. That was about the the suffocating effect of female love. And R.S. Thomas, well, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go to church not because I was forced to, like Flynn was. I went because I enjoyed it, and because it was the way I marked out the difference between good and evil in those young terms. I remember watching. They were doing what's the Dickens novel where Bill Sikes batters Nancy to death? Oliver Twist. And I remember watching that at 5:30 on a tea time when I was about 8 years old or something. I'm being absolutely horrified. And then going to church and feeling this is where I ought to be. This is where goodness is. and badness is there. I mean, it sounds ridiculous now, but that's what actually happened. And so it gave me that, the way Hughes talks about the division between body and soul when he looked at that great cliff in Mithermoroid.
Scout Rock.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and so that's how I felt about that. So that sense of spirituality um, has been a big part of my life. Not that I give organised religion a good press, of course, but you know what I mean.
So there's a sort of line which has to do with Blake and Gerard Manley Hopkins.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've always obviously loved both of them, but I mean, of course, Blake, hated the church, didn't he? Hated it. The Black Satanic Mills weren't the mills themselves; they were the churches, weren't they? And I could see why Jeremiah Hopkins became a Jesuit because it gave him peace, didn't it? Time to get on with what he had to do. I mean, these days you have to go benefit.
It seems to me that there's a sort of strong line of dissent running through your work. Dissent in the sense that it's dissent from the common view of what existence is or what poetry should do, but also dissent in the way that you stubbornly reject the path of being a popular or a career poet. And the other sort of tendency that I identify is one of the visionary. There's a sort of deep-seated sense of vision in your poems, which I guess comes back to Blake as well. I wonder if you could say something about, first of all about your dissent and something about this sense of vision.
It also goes back to Shelley, of course, doesn't it? And the defence of poetry.
Yes.
Poets are the hierophants of an uninspired inspiration. And the gigantic mirrors which futurity casts upon the present. Yeah, I mean, to me, the purpose of poetry is to be visionary. I know it's an unpopular thing to say. I know it's unfashionable, like the word inspiration is, and like the author doesn't exist, all that sort of rubbish. But no, I think really seriously, a poet should be visionary. I mean, as I've said before, Oldham came close to that. Certainly Ted Hughes did. And I've got a lot of stick for trying and failing to do it myself. So
for you, poetry has a function then. It's not just the delight of entertaining. It has a particular.
Oh, certainly not. No. If poetry's anything, it's serious. It's not entertainment at all. If you want entertainment, just switch the telly on. I mean, please. I'm not going on Big Brother. No.